There are a ton of things that you can totally DIY that will be better and cheaper in the end. But there are a few things that this is not the case for. There's a few things that like DIYing is actually much worse and not worth the time and money. Hey bridal beauties, welcome back to my channel. For those of you who are new here, welcome and congrats on your engagement. I'm Kyle James. Be sure that you hit that subscribe button if you have not already. I post new wedding planning videos every single Wednesday, so hit the subscribe button and make sure your bell notification is turned on so that you don't miss any of those. And let's talk about what you should not DIY for your wedding. So I'm all about getting your hands dirty and putting in the work and the effort and the time to DIY stuff for your wedding and really make it amazing. I say this all the time on my channel. With all of the free resources available online, you can definitely do a lot of your wedding yourself. And over the years in planning tons of weddings and tons of parties, there are just a few things that I have learned it's just not worth it. So if you're ready to cross some things off that DIY list that you don't need to do and you shouldn't do yourself, give this video a thumbs up and let's get started. Here is my list of things you should not DIY for your wedding. Number 1 is your eyelashes. I know this is like super specific, but this one is actually a big deal. It doesn't seem like it, but it is. So your eyelashes are going to affect all of your photos and they can be a total distraction, especially if they're done badly. So if you are somebody who is really good at doing your makeup and you really want to do your own makeup, I think that that's totally fine, but the eyelashes should be done by a pro. There's just something about maybe the nerves on your wedding day, or it's just, there's a good chance it's gonna be one of those days where the eyelashes give you a hard time and you get glue everywhere and you mess your makeup up and you're totally stressed out, or it goes fine and then they end up popping off by the end of the night. Either way, we just don't want to mess with lashes. So for this, I recommend actually just going and getting a full set of lash extensions. It's totally worth the money. You're not going to have to mess with your lashes on the day of. You're not going to have to worry about them falling off or anything. You know that they're going to look great, and having them done just adds so much to your photos. It's so worth it. And also, if you do go in and get the lash extensions, then you get to have them through your honeymoon too. And you could get them a little bit before the wedding as well, and have them for your bachelorette party and the celebrations leading up to your wedding day. So I highly recommend lash extensions. Get them done by a pro. Do not do your lashes yourself on the day of. The next thing that you should never DIY for your wedding is your catering. So I know that there are some brides out there who are on a very tight budget, and this is the way that they're planning on cutting the cost of food, is by either making the food themselves or having their family make it. And I recommend against this so much. So I've done like a 300-person wedding on a $15,000 budget, so I know that it can be done. You're just gonna have to get a little bit creative. Some of you may not be able to afford a full service traditional wedding caterer with your budget, but there are tons of other options. There's tons of restaurants that you can totally use for catering, and it might just be they come and set up the buffet for you, but you definitely want this to be done by the pros. Not only because it's easy to underestimate how hard it is to feed that amount of people all at once, and whether it is a traditional wedding caterer or it's a restaurant or something, they'll have a way to do this. They'll know what they're doing in feeding this many people at once that will just make your life so much easier. And also, you just don't want to be running around trying to get the food out at your own wedding, and making sure that everyone's fed. That's just going to take away from your experience. So I know that some of you totally have a limited budget here, but it can be done. Like I said, I did a 300-person wedding on a $15,000 budget, and we accomplished that by hiring just a barbecue restaurant to do the catering, and it was great. It was actually really, really good. So yeah, there's other options other than doing the food yourself or having your family do it. The next thing that you should not DIY for your wedding is day of coordination. You can totally plan your entire wedding yourself without hiring a wedding planner. I have a whole video on this. I'll link that below. But you cannot do your day of coordination yourself if you want to fully enjoy the experience of your wedding. No matter what budget you are on, there's definitely a way to hire somebody to run the day of coordination. It's just not worth it to be like running around all chaotic trying to make sure everything is in place for your wedding, when you should be sitting there like getting ready to get married and soaking it in and being present. I think that if you are doing your own day of coordination, you're gonna end up missing a lot of your big day, and then like what's the point anyway? So I'll be sure to link that video below. Watch that if you are up in the air about what you need to do here. But yeah, day of coordination, definitely hire someone. If you are on a tight budget here, you can hire somebody who's newer to the business, who may have lower rates or something like that, but have somebody specifically hired and assigned to this task that is not you or any of your immediate family members. The next thing you should definitely not DIY for your wedding is the music. There are so many different options out there for DJs on different budgets, depending on if you have a tighter budget or not. But putting together a playlist on your phone or something is just not the way to go. Having a professional there who knows what they're doing with the sound so that everybody can hear you, like when you're saying vows and toasts and stuff like that, and somebody who can like really be responsible for keeping the party going makes such a difference. The next thing you should never, ever, ever, ever DIY for your wedding is the photography. I recommend not even allowing like a friend or a family member to do this unless they are a professional photographer. Honestly, the photos are what you have to like relive the memories of your big day. And you only get one chance at getting your photos for your wedding day. And so if you just have a friend do it or have a family member do it who's like starting out, then there's a good chance that you won't have great photos, and it's not like you can just redo your wedding to be able to get those photos and capture those memories. So it's just so important to have a professional who knows what they're doing to shoot your wedding so that you can really hold on to those memories and go back and revisit them. The next thing you should never DIY for your wedding is your cake. I've talked to tons of brides who have done the cake themselves, or it's usually they have somebody in their family who wants to do the cake for them, and usually this does not turn out well. There's always something that happens like in delivery, or the cake just doesn't turn out how they want. So I highly recommend just hiring a pro for this. If you're on a tight budget, you can just go to like Sam's Club or something like that to get a cheap cake. You want to make sure that you get your cake from somewhere that you can trust, especially if you want those like cake cutting photos and stuff. The wedding cake is not something you want to be stressing about on your big day, especially if it comes out and it's just like horrible and you hate it. There's so many different options no matter what budget you're on for wedding cake. So just hire a pro for this. The next thing that you should never DIY for your wedding is the lighting. So many brides underestimate the importance of lighting on their big day. Lighting affects the vibe of the party. This is not something you want to completely cut out of your budget to try to save money on, because it really does matter. I would opt for hiring somebody to do lighting over having extra floral or extra decor or anything, because it just makes such a difference. It makes a way bigger difference than any decor or floral is going to make. It makes a difference in your photos, and it makes a difference in like the experience of your party. So I highly recommend foregoing other areas of your budget to be able to hire somebody to do lighting. You can also ask your venue if they have a recommendation or if they have somebody who knows about the lighting situation at the venue, so you can make sure that you are covered there and you're not going to be like running around trying to find the right light switches or whatever. You just want to make sure that the lighting is taken care of by somebody who is not you. The next thing that you should definitely not DIY for your wedding is the bar. I feel like this goes wrong a lot. If you have a self-serve open bar, yes, it might save you some money, but you will definitely have a very drunk crowd. You do not want people pouring their own drinks at your wedding. There are tons of options available. Obviously, you can hire a full bar company. Your venue might have bartenders or your caterer might have bartenders available. But I highly recommend having somebody there to be able to make drinks for your guests, just to manage the amount of alcohol consumption. It will probably actually save you money to have somebody who knows what they're doing and the amounts of alcohol that they're pouring, instead of having just your guests free pour their drinks. So yeah, hire a bartender. It's so worth it, and they know about the legal liability stuff. There is some major stuff that can go wrong with like drinking and driving and having the right insurance policies and stuff like that. And most of the time, especially if you're getting married at a traditional wedding venue, you're required to have somebody who has like a liquor license and professional bartenders to be serving your alcohol. So know what's in your contract, and yeah, hire a pro here. It's so worth it. You don't want your party to just be a big mess. The next thing that you should not DIY for your wedding is your invitations. This one is a little bit hard because there's just so many videos and so many blog posts about DIYing your wedding invitations. But in my experience, it ends up being way more trouble than it's worth. And they end up not looking as good, and they end up being just a big stress point in your wedding planning. No matter what budget you're working with here, there are options online that you can just print and send out that will look just so much better than something you could DIY. And then if you are somebody who is very crafty, just be sure that you understand the amount of work that it's going to take and the amount of time. Give yourself plenty of time to do this, but I recommend just hiring a pro for this. If you want something that is more like custom and DIY looking, there are a million people on Etsy who would be happy to help you out here. Save yourself the trouble. It's not worth it. It ends up being stressful because they don't turn out how you want them to be, and they take so much extra time. The next thing you should never DIY for your wedding is your wedding dress. Oh my gosh, I cannot stress enough. Do not try to make your own wedding dress or allow a friend or family member to do so for you, unless they're like a wedding dress designer. There are so many options if you're on a limited budget to get a dress for a lower cost other than trying to make it. It's just most likely not gonna turn out how you want. And especially if you have a friend or a family member making it for you, it's going to put like tension on your relationship when it doesn't turn out how you want. Don't do this. It's so worth it to find a dress online. You can find used dresses. There's just so many options out there, and it's just worth it to spend a little extra money to not have to deal with the stress of making your dress. So I'm not saying that you have to go the traditional route with any of these things. Like I mentioned throughout this whole video, there's so many options that you can totally get creative on any budget and make it happen. And also some of these things you could cut out altogether if you really do have a limited budget or they're just really stressing you out. There are a ton of ways to get creative and make your budget stretch further on these things. But DIYing is not one of them. I highly recommend against it. If you are going to cross off some of the DIY things on your list, let me know in the comments below what you are no longer going to DIY. I would love to hear from you girls. Also, if you have some ideas for making these things happen on a lower budget, please share those below as well. Help your fellow brides out. If this video was helpful, please give it a thumbs up and share it with the other girls in your life who are engaged. Save them some trouble as well. If you're not already, be sure that you are subscribed so that you don't miss any of my new wedding planning videos. I post new videos every single Wednesday. So be sure you're subscribed so you don't miss that, and we'll see you next time. Happy planning!